The moment I heard my name echo through the church, I froze. And special thanks to Margaret Wilson, owner of Crowning Glory Salon, without whom this beautiful bride wouldn't be standing here today. My heart slammed against my chest as 300 heads swiveled toward the back pew where I sat, practically invisible until now. The bride's face drained of all color, her perfect makeup which I hadn't done suddenly stark against her pallor, her eyes locked with mine across the cavernous space. And in that moment, I knew she remembered everything she'd stolen from me. The pearl-handled scissors I still held in my purse suddenly felt heavier. I hadn't planned to be mentioned. I'd slipped in late, wearing sunglasses and a hat I'd never normally choose, positioning myself in the last possible pew where no one would recognize me. After all, who notices the 63-year-old woman sitting alone at a wedding? But Pastor Michaels didn't know our history. He only knew what the groom had, apparently, told him. How was he to know that the generous salon owner he was thanking had lost her business, her home, and nearly her will to live because of that bride in white? Let me back up, because you deserve to know how I ended up hiding in the back of a church on what should have been just another Saturday in April. I need to tell you exactly how Melissa Cooper, now about to become Melissa Jenkins, systematically dismantled my life while smiling in my face. I've documented everything: dates, dollar amounts, text messages. By the time I finish, you'll understand why I brought those scissors to her wedding. And maybe you'll ask yourself what you would have done in my place. Crowning Glory was my life's work. I opened it 37 years ago in the little storefront on Maple Avenue with nothing but a beautician's license, a bank loan for $42,000, and more determination than sense. Back then, Millfield was still a small town where everybody knew everybody. I built that business chair by chair, client by client. I watched children grow up in my salon, styled their hair for proms, weddings, even prepared the departed at the funeral home when families requested it. My husband Frank used to joke that I knew more secrets than the town priest. Every small town needs its Margaret, he'd say, and I'd feel like I mattered. After Frank died of a heart attack in 2019, the salon became everything: my purpose, my social life, my future. I first met Melissa 3 years ago when she moved to town and applied for a position at my salon. She was 32, with bouncy blonde hair and a portfolio full of impressive work from a salon in Chicago. I just needed a change of pace, she told me during the interview, those big blue eyes wide with what I now know was practiced sincerity. I'm tired of the city grind. I want to put down roots somewhere real. She showed me photographs of elegant updos, perfect highlights, and cutting-edge styles that made my traditional techniques look dated. I hired her on the spot, $22 per hour, plus 15% commission on products sold. I remember writing the numbers on her employment contract while she beamed at me. "You won't regret this, Margaret," she said. "We're going to make magic together." The first 6 months were nothing short of wonderful. Melissa brought in younger clients, women in their 20s and 30s who started booking regular appointments and buying the premium products she recommended. My revenue increased by 32% in just the first quarter she worked for me. She was punctual, enthusiastic, and the clients loved her. I even started thinking about expanding, maybe adding a small spa section in the back room that had been used for storage. Melissa encouraged this dream, staying late to help me measure the space and research equipment costs. "This place could be so much more," she'd say, gesturing expansively. "You've built an amazing foundation, Margaret. Let me help you take it to the next level." I trusted her so completely that when she suggested becoming a partner rather than an employee, it seemed like the natural progression. "I'm committed to Crowning Glory," she told me over coffee one morning before opening. "I want to invest in this place, bring in new ideas, but honor the legacy you've created." Her words were like honey, and I lapped them up eagerly. I was 60 years old and starting to think about an exit strategy. Wouldn't a partnership leading to eventual ownership be the perfect solution? I'd work another 5 years, phase into retirement, and leave my beloved salon in capable hands. I'd still have income from the business, but freedom to finally travel, maybe visit my sister in Arizona more than once a year. We drew up the partnership agreement with a local attorney, Lawrence Brewer. I'd known Larry for decades. He'd helped with Frank's will and handled all my business matters. He seemed impressed with Melissa and her vision for the salon's future. The terms were straightforward. Melissa would pay $75,000 for a 30% stake in the business, with an option to purchase an additional 20% after 2 years. The money would allow me to renovate and expand into the spa services we'd discussed. I remember signing the papers on March 15, 2022, feeling proud and relieved. I even took a photo of us shaking hands across Larry's mahogany desk, which I later framed and hung in the salon. What I didn't know then was that Melissa had already been laying groundwork I couldn't see. I didn't know about the private conversations she'd been having with our suppliers, the secret meetings with my best clients, or the loans she'd secured using false information. I had no idea she'd been systematically photographing my client records after hours, building her own database of every person who'd ever trusted me with their hair and their stories. The first hint came about 2 months after our partnership became official. Vivian Miller, my Thursday 2:30 appointment for over 15 years, called to counsel. "Nothing personal, Margaret," she said hesitantly, "but Melissa's doing a special promotion at her new place for all Crowning Glory clients, half-price highlights, and a free deep conditioning treatment. I just can't pass that up on my fixed income." I nearly dropped the phone. "Her new place," I repeated stupidly. Vivian went quiet for a moment. "Oh, I thought you knew. Radiance Hair Studio, over on Park Street. It just opened last week." After I hung up, I sat at the reception desk, staring at the appointment book while my mind raced. This had to be a misunderstanding. Melissa had been at the salon yesterday, chatting with clients, ordering supplies. Nothing had seemed amiss. I called her cell phone immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I left what I thought was a calm message asking her to call me about a confusing situation with Vivian. Then I waited. 3 more cancellations came in that afternoon, all with the same explanation. By closing time, with still no word from Melissa, I decided to drive over to Park Street myself. I needed to see this new place with my own eyes. I'll never forget the feeling in my stomach when I turned the corner and saw it. A freshly painted storefront with an elegant sign reading Radiance Hair Studio in flowing script. Through the window, I could see Melissa laughing with a client, Mrs. Henderson, who had been coming to me for blue rinses every Tuesday for a decade. The interior was modern and sleek, with none of the homey touches that defined Crowning Glory. In the corner stood a brand new styling station, identical to the ones I'd been researching for our renovation. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, watching my clients come and go. I counted 17 people I recognized in that short time. When the last customer left and Melissa flipped the sign to closed, I finally worked up the courage to go inside. The little bell above the door jingled cheerfully, just like the one in my own shop. Melissa looked up, and for a split second, surprise flashed across her face before she composed herself into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Margaret," she said smoothly, "I was going to call you tomorrow. I figured you'd hear eventually, but I wanted to get everything in place first." She gestured around the gleaming salon as if presenting a gift. "What do you think?" The casualness in her voice made my blood boil, but I forced myself to remain calm. I needed answers. Before emotions, "I think you have some explaining to do," I said quietly, clutching my purse strap to stop my hands from shaking. "We have a partnership agreement. You can't just open a competing business." Melissa's laugh was light, dismissive. "Oh, that agreement. If you check the fine print, Margaret, there's actually no non-compete clause. Your lawyer really should have caught that." She leaned against the reception counter, completely at ease. "Besides, I'm still maintaining my hours at Crowning Glory. This is just a side project. A side project that's stealing my clients." My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. "You're offering them special deals to leave me clients I've had for decades." Melissa shrugged, examining her perfectly manicured nails. "Business is business. I'm offering better service at better prices. Isn't that how the free market works?" She looked up at me with something like pity. "Your salon is outdated, Margaret. The techniques, the decor, even the products, everything needs an upgrade that you're too afraid to make. I tried to help you modernize, but you're so resistant to change. We had plans," I whispered, feeling tears threatening. "The renovation, the spa services." She cut me off with a wave of her hand. "Too little, too late. This town needs something fresh, and I'm providing it. You should be thanking me for giving you that $75,000. Consider it an extremely generous payment for the client list." That's when the truth hit me like a physical blow. She'd never intended to be my partner. The partnership was just a way to legitimize her access to my business records, my supplier contacts, and most importantly, my clients. I left Radiance that night in a daze, hardly remembering the drive home. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there with the engine off, trying to process what had happened. The home I'd shared with Frank suddenly seemed very empty, very quiet. I'd lost him, and now I was losing the only other thing that mattered to me. That night, I cried until there were no tears left, clutching the framed partnership photo like it was evidence of a crime. In a way, it was. The next morning, I called Larry Brewer, first thing. "She's right about the non-compete," he admitted after reviewing the contract. I didn't think we needed it, since she was becoming your partner. There was no reason to believe she'd compete against her own investment. He sounded genuinely shocked by Melissa's actions. "But this is clearly a breach of fiduciary duty," he added. "She has an obligation to act in the partnership's best interest, not actively damage it. We can file for an injunction, possibly even dissolution of the partnership with damages. Legal proceedings, however, take time and money to things I suddenly found myself short on." Over the next weeks, my client list continued to shrink. I lost 63% of my regular customers within the first month. My part-time assistants left to work at Radiance, lured by promises of better hours and higher commissions. Meanwhile, Melissa kept her end of our agreement to the letter, showing up for her scheduled shifts at Crowning Glory. But now I understood. It was just for Joanne to continue having access to any remaining clients she hadn't yet poached. During those awful shifts together, she maintained a facade of friendly professionalism that made me question my own sanity. Was I overreacting? Was this really just business, as they say? But then I'd overhear her quietly telling a client about a special service she could provide at her other location, and I'd remember that this was calculated destruction. She was systematically dismantling everything I'd built while smiling to my face. I started keeping a journal of these incidents, dates, times, names of clients, exactly what was said. I didn't know if it would help legally, but documenting it all made me feel less powerless, less crazy. One particularly painful Tuesday afternoon, I overheard Melissa on the phone with one of our suppliers. "Yes, I understand you have a long relationship with Crowning Glory," she was saying. "But you should know their order volumes are dropping significantly. Meanwhile, Radiance is growing fast. I'd hate to take all my business to your competitor, but I need better terms to make this work." She caught me listening and simply winked before continuing her negotiation. That night, I added the conversation to my journal, my handwriting shaky with anger. The financial impact was devastating. By the 3-month mark, my revenue had dropped by 70%. I could barely make payroll for the 2 loyal employees who remained. The mortgage on my house had been paid off years ago, thankfully, but I still had the commercial loan on the salon building itself, $1,450 per month for the next 7 years. Then there were utilities, insurance, supplies. I started dipping into my retirement savings just to keep the doors open. I was too stubborn, too proud to admit defeat. This salon had survived 2 recessions, a flood, and my husband's death. I wasn't about to let Melissa Cooper take it from me without a fight. That's when the mysterious reviews started appearing online. 1-star ratings claiming they'd found hair in their coffee at Crowning Glory, that I'd overcharged elderly clients, that the salon was unsanitary. "Margaret seems to be slipping in her old age," one review read. "She forgot she'd already charged my credit card and tried to charge me again. When I pointed it out, she got confused and angry. It's sad to see." Another claimed I'd burned someone's scalp with hair dye and refused to apologize. These were outright lies, incidents that had never happened. But potential new clients wouldn't know that. I began losing sleep, spending nights scrolling through these reviews, trying to respond professionally while my hands shook with rage. I lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks simply because food had lost all appeal. My own hair, once my best advertisement, became dull and limp as stress took its toll. When I looked in the mirror, I hardly recognized the haggard woman staring back at me. Is this what Frank would see if he were still alive? This defeated version of the woman he'd loved? The thought brought fresh tears every time it crossed my mind. Larry advised me to document everything while he built our case, but I could tell even he was concerned about our chances. "Small business disputes are complicated," he explained gently, And technically, she hasn't violated the exact letter of your agreement. He suggested trying to negotiate a buyout of Melissa purchase my share of Crowning Glory and release me from the partnership. You could walk away with something, at least, he said. The very idea made me physically ill. Walk away from my life's work. Let her win so completely. Then came the final blow. I arrived at the salon one Monday morning in June to find the locks changed. A notice on the door informed me that the property management company had terminated my lease due to multiple violations of property maintenance standards and noise ordinances. This was absurd. I'd been a model tenant for decades. When I called the property manager, he sounded genuinely regretful. We've had multiple complaints, Mrs. Wilson, and honestly, with the new salon across town doing so well, the owners are considering other options for this space that might bring in higher rent. Nothing per se. Business. Just business. The same words Melissa had used. I stood on the sidewalk outside my locked salon, staring at my own reflection in the window where I'd served clients for nearly 4 decades. Through the glass, I could see the framed photos on the wall, me cutting the ribbon on opening day in 1985, my staff Christmas party from 2018, Frank sitting proudly in my styling chair for a trim, all my equipment, products, even the appointment book with the few remaining clients, everything was locked inside. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, watching this sad old woman falling apart on a public street. I called Larry again, my voice barely recognizable even to myself. He promised to look into the lease termination immediately, but his tone told me what I already suspected. Melissa had somehow engineered this too. As I walked back to my car, phone clutched in my hand, a text message arrived from an unknown number. Ready to sell your 30% stake in the partnership yet? Offer still stands. For now. I didn't need a signature to know who it was from. That night was my lowest point. I sat at my kitchen table with all my financial documents spread before me, bank statements showing my dwindling savings, the salon's books with their dramatic decline in revenue, the partnership agreement with its glaring omission of a non-compete clause. I'd lost $193,000 in business value in just 3 months. Not counting the emotional toll or the years of future income. I'd planned my retirement around the weight of it all, pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. I found myself opening Frank's old liquor cabinet, something I rarely did, and pouring a generous glass of whiskey. As I took that first burning sip, my eyes fell on our wedding photo on the mantel. Frank in his navy suit, me in my simple white dress, both of us laughing at something the photographer had said. We looked so young, so certain that life would be kind if we worked hard enough. Frank had always been my rock, my voice of reason when things got tough. What would you do, Frank? I whispered to the empty room. The silence that answered was deafening. I must have fallen asleep at the table because I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and a crick in my neck. My phone showed 17 missed calls, 16 from Larry, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I called Larry first, still groggy from the whiskey and emotional exhaustion. Margaret, where have you been? He demanded when he answered. I've been trying to reach you all night. Something's happened. His tone sent a jolt of adrenaline through me, clearing the fog from my brain. The property manager called me, Larry continued. There was a small fire at the salon last night. My heart stopped. A fire. Was anyone hurt? How bad is it? The questions tumbled out before I could organize my thoughts. No injuries, Larry assured me quickly. It was contained to the back room. Looks like an electrical issue with that old wiring. But here's the thing. The property company is claiming it voids the lease entirely, and they're saying you're liable for damages because you neglected necessary electrical upgrades that were supposedly in the lease terms. I felt like I was drowning. That's not true, I managed to say. I've maintained everything according to the lease. We had an inspection just last year. Larry's sigh carried through the phone. I know, Margaret. I think we're being set up. This is too convenient, coming right after they changed the locks. The fire marshal is investigating, but in the meantime, they're refusing to let you access the building to retrieve your property. They're claiming it's a safety issue until the investigation concludes. After I hung up with Larry, I noticed the voicemail from the unknown number. With shaking fingers, I pressed play. Margaret, it's Melissa. I just heard about the fire. How awful. Listen, in light of these developments, I think we should talk about dissolving our partnership. It's clear Crowning Glory isn't viable anymore. I'm prepared to offer you $25,000 for your remaining interest in the business assets, which is generous considering there may not be much left. Call me when you get this. And Margaret, I'd think carefully about accepting. This offer expires in 24 hours. $25,000. For my life's work, for the business I'd valued at over $300,000 just 6 months earlier. The number was so insulting, it actually cleared my head. This wasn't just business anymore, this was personal destruction. Melissa didn't just want my clients or my salon, she wanted to break me completely. And in that moment of clarity, something shifted inside me. The grief and shock that had paralyzed me for months suddenly crystallized into something harder, sharper. I would not let her win. Not like this. I didn't call Melissa back. Instead, I called the one person who might actually be able to help me, my niece. Jennifer. She worked as a cybersecurity specialist for a tech company in Boston. And while we weren't especially close, she had Frank's practical mind and a knowledge of technology that I sorely lacked. Aunt Margaret, she answered, surprise evident in her voice. Is everything okay? You never called during work hours. No, I admitted, my voice steadier than it had been in weeks. Everything is very much not okay, and I need your help. I spent the next 30 minutes telling Jennifer everything: the partnership, the betrayal, the systematic dismantling of my business, and now, the fire that I was increasingly certain was no accident. When I finished, the line was silent for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Jen, are you still there? I'm here, she said finally. I'm just processing. This Melissa person is a piece of work. I heard keyboard clicking in the background. Tell me her full name again. I did, and the clicking intensified. And the name of her new salon. More typing. Aunt Margaret, I'm coming to town this weekend. Don't do anything until I get there. Don't talk to Melissa. Don't sign anything, and definitely don't accept that insulting offer. Can you hang tight for 3 more days? For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Yes, I said. I can wait. I didn't know exactly what Jennifer had in mind, but the determination in her voice reminded me so much of Frank that I felt stronger just hearing it. Maybe I wasn't completely alone in this fight after all. When Jennifer arrived that Friday evening, she didn't come alone. With her was a serious-looking man in his 40s, whom she introduced as Michael, a colleague with expertise we need. They set up laptops on my dining room table and asked to see everything. I had the partnership agreement, financial records, my journal of incidents, photos of the salon before and after Melissa's arrival. I provided it all, watching as they created a timeline on my dining room wall with sticky notes and string, like detectives in a crime show. Your Melissa has been busy, Michael commented, scrolling through something on his laptop. She's got quite a digital footprint for someone who claims to have come from Chicago. Just 3 years ago, he turned the screen toward me, showing social media profiles under slightly different names: Melissa Cooper, Mel Cooper, Lisa Cooper, all with the same face but different claimed hometowns and employment histories. And none of them mention anything about a high-end Chicago salon. Jennifer nodded grimly. We think she's done this before, Aunt Margaret. Different names, different towns, but the same playbook. Find a successful small business owner, nearing retirement age, gain their trust, become indispensable, then strip the assets and client list before moving on. She pulled up property records, showing that Radiance Hair Studios building had been purchased, not leased, by an LLC formed just 1 month before. Melissa and I had signed our partnership agreement. She was planning her exit before she even became your partner, but the $75,000 she paid me for the partnership stake, I said, confusion mounting. Why invest that much just to destroy the business? Michael's expression was grim, because it wasn't her money. We found loan documents. She took out $250,000 using the partnership agreement as leverage, claiming she was buying a controlling interest in an established business with steady revenue. The bank didn't verify with you because she had legitimate paperwork showing she was a partner authorized to act on behalf of the business. My stomach lurched as the pieces clicked into place. So she used my business's reputation to secure a loan, then used that money to pay me a fraction of what she borrowed, and kept the rest to fund her competing salon. Jennifer nodded solemnly. Exactly. And we think the negative reviews are coming from fake accounts she created. They all follow similar speech patterns, and were posted from the same IP addresses. For the next 2 days, we gathered evidence. Jennifer recovered deleted security footage from the salon showing Melissa photographing client records after hours. Michael tracked the ownership of the LLC that purchased Radiance's building to an account in Melissa's mother's name. We even found a pattern of small businesses in 3 other states that had mysteriously failed after hiring a young woman matching Melissa's description, though under different names. "What about the fire?" I asked, the question that had been nagging at me. Michael's expression darkened. "We can't prove anything yet, but the timing is suspicious." And we found texts between Melissa and the property manager from 2 weeks before the fire, discussing alternative arrangements for the space. He showed me screenshots of the conversations, not explicitly incriminating, but certainly suggesting collusion. The good news is, the fire marshal's preliminary report found signs that the electrical failure had been tampered with. They're continuing to investigate. By Sunday evening, we had assembled a comprehensive file documenting what appeared to be a sophisticated fraud scheme. "This goes beyond civil court," Jennifer explained, organizing printouts into a folder. "This is potential bank fraud, insurance fraud, maybe even arson. We need to take this to the authorities." Michael agreed. "And not just local police, this crosses state lines, that makes it federal." I felt overwhelmed by the scope of what we'd uncovered. Will anyone believe me? I'm just a hairstylist from a small town. She's young, charming. Jennifer squeezed my hand. "The evidence speaks for itself, Aunt Margaret. And you're not just a hairstylist, you're a business owner who's been systematically defrauded. Plus, you won't be going alone. I'm coming with you." The next morning, Jennifer and I sat across from Agent Sarah Calloway of the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division in the nearest field office, 45 minutes from Millfield. I'd expected to be dismissed, but Agent Calloway listened intently as we presented our evidence, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When we finished, she leaned back in her chair, expression thoughtful. "This is remarkably comprehensive work," she said, glancing at Jennifer. "Most victims don't come in with this level of documentation. Will you be able to help?" I asked, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. Agent Calloway nodded slowly. "We take financial fraud very seriously, especially when it shows a pattern across multiple states. I can't promise immediate results, but yes, we'll investigate thoroughly." She took our file and promised to be in touch within the week. As we left her office, I felt lighter than I had in months. Someone with authority was finally listening. True to her word, Agent Calloway called 3 days later. "We've confirmed much of what you presented," she said without preamble. "Melissa Cooper isn't even her real name, Melissa Jenkins. She's been on our radar for similar schemes in Pennsylvania and Ohio, though she managed to stay just under the threshold for federal charges each time. Until now." The name struck me like a physical blow. Jenkins, the same surname as the man Melissa was about to marry. "Jenkins," I repeated. "She's getting married this Saturday to a man named Jenkins." There was a pause on the line. "That's interesting," Agent Calloway said carefully. "Robert Jenkins." I confirmed it was. "He's the son of a prominent real estate developer in your area, correct?" Again, I confirmed. "Mrs. Wilson, this adds another dimension to our investigation. The Jenkins family owns significant commercial property in 3 counties, including several shopping centers. If Melissa is marrying into that family, she's scaling up," I finished, the realization dawning. Instead of targeting small business owners, she's going after real estate holdings. Agent Calloway didn't directly confirm my theory, but her tone said enough. "We need to move carefully here. The wedding actually gives us a good opportunity to observe interactions. We'll have agents in attendance, but they'll be undercover. In the meantime, please don't approach Melissa or share what you know with anyone else." After that call, the days passed in a strange limbo. I received insurance money for the salon equipment lost in the fire, not nearly what it was worth, but enough to keep me afloat temporarily. The property manager suddenly became more cooperative when Agent Calloway paid him a visit, allowing me to retrieve the items that had survived the fire. Larry continued building our civil case, though he advised waiting to file until the federal investigation progressed. Meanwhile, the entire town buzzed with excitement over the upcoming Jenkins-Cooper wedding. Robert Jenkins was Millfield's most eligible bachelor. His family, practically local royalty. The wedding would be held at First Presbyterian, the historic church downtown, with a reception at the Jenkins estate. Everyone who was anyone had received an invitation, except me, of course. I heard all the details from my remaining clients, who didn't understand why the exciting new salon owner was marrying into Millfield's first family, while poor old Margaret Wilson's business had mysteriously failed. The morning of the wedding, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since before Melissa entered my life. Agent Calloway had called the previous evening to confirm that her team would be in place, some posing as caterers, others as distant family members. "We're just gathering intelligence at this point," she'd reminded me. "Don't expect arrests at the ceremony." I'd agreed to stay away, to let them handle it, but as I sipped my morning coffee, another plan formed in my mind. I opened my closet and selected an outfit I'd worn only once before Frank's funeral, a simple navy dress, understated pearl earrings, and a wide-brimmed hat that would partially obscure my face. The last item I selected was far more meaningful: my professional scissors. The pearl-handled pair Frank had given me for our 25th anniversary. "Every artist needs the proper tools," he'd said as I unwrapped them. I slipped them into my purse, not with any intention of using them, but as a talisman, a reminder of who I was before Melissa tried to destroy me. The church was already filling when I arrived, but no one paid attention to the older woman who slipped into the back pew just as the music started. I recognized many faces: former clients, business owners from downtown, even the mayor and his wife. The Jenkins family occupied the front row on the groom's side, stern-faced Robert Sr. surveying the assembled guests like a general reviewing troops. On the bride's side, just a handful of people I didn't recognize, presumably the family Melissa claimed came from Chicago, but who, according to Jennifer's research, were actually paid actors she used for such occasions. The ceremony proceeded with all the pomp one would expect from Millfield's wedding of the year. Robert Jenkins Jr. stood at the altar looking genuinely happy, if somewhat nervous. When the bridal march began and everyone stood, I remained seated, using the people in front of me as a shield. Melissa appeared at the back of the church, a vision in white lace, looking nothing like the woman who had systematically destroyed my life. Her smile was radiant as she processed down the aisle on the arm of a distinguished-looking man I assumed was another hired performer playing father of the bride. I watched with a strange detachment as they exchanged traditional vows, promising to love and honor each other until death parted them. Did Robert Jenkins Jr. know who he was really marrying? Had she shown him her true self? Or was he just another mark in her long con? I think almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The officiant, Pastor Michaels, was nearing the end of the ceremony when he paused to make what should have been a routine acknowledgement of those who had contributed to the couple's journey. "Before I pronounce these two husband and wife," he said warmly, "Robert has asked me to acknowledge some special people who couldn't be recognized in the program." He thanked Robert's childhood nanny, his college mentor, and then the moment that changed everything, and special thanks to Margaret Wilson, owner of Crowning Glory Salon, without whom this beautiful bride wouldn't be standing here today. The moment I heard my name echo through the church, I froze. My heart slammed against my chest as 300 heads swiveled toward the back pew where I sat, practically invisible until now. The bride's face drained of all color, her perfect makeup suddenly stark against her pallor. Her eyes locked with mine across the cavernous space, and in that moment, I knew she remembered everything she'd stolen from me. The pearl-handled scissors I still held in my purse suddenly felt heavier. Pastor Michaels, oblivious to the tension, continued cheerfully. "Robert tells me that when Melissa first came to town, Margaret took her under her wing, mentored her in business, and even helped finance her own salon. What a beautiful example of women supporting women in our community." A murmur ran through the congregation as people turned to look at me again, now with expressions of approval and admiration. If they only knew the truth. Melissa had recovered her composure, plastering a tight smile on her face as she nodded along with the pastor's words. But I could see her eyes darting around the church, likely looking for the quickest escape route. Robert was beaming, clearly proud of himself for including this thoughtful acknowledgement. He had no idea he'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that was about to explode. Pastor Michaels wrapped up his remarks and prepared to pronounce them husband and wife when a commotion at the side door drew everyone's attention. Agent Calloway entered, flanked by two other agents in formal FBI jackets. "Melissa Jenkins," she called out clearly, using the name Melissa had apparently already adopted. We need you to come with us for questioning regarding multiple counts of fraud across state lines. The church erupted in gasps and confused chatter. Robert Jenkins Jr. looked from his almost wife to the federal agents, in complete bewilderment. What is this? He demanded. What's happening? Melissa grabbed his arm, her face a mask of terrified innocence. I don't know, Robert. I don't know these people or what they're talking about. Agent Calloway approached the altar calmly, professional despite the dramatic setting. Mr. Jenkins, we have evidence that Melissa Cooper, or rather, Angela Dawson, which is her legal name according to birth records, has engaged in a pattern of defrauding small business owners and financial institutions across 4 states. We also have reason to believe she's attempting to integrate herself into your family's real estate business for similar purposes. The senior Jenkins rose from his seat, face flushed with anger. This is outrageous. Do you know who we are in this community? Agent Calloway was unimpressed. Yes, sir, we do. Which is precisely why we're intervening before your family business becomes her next victim. She turned to Melissa. You can come voluntarily, or we can place you under arrest here. Your choice. Melissa or Angela looked wildly around the church, perhaps seeking an escape route or a sympathetic face. Her gaze landed on me again, and for a brief moment, I saw raw hatred in those blue eyes. Then, with a dramatic sob, she collapsed against Robert. They're lying. This is all a mistake. Tell them, Robert. The young man looked shell-shocked, clearly trying to process what was happening at what should have been the happiest moment of his life. What happened next surprised even me. Robert gently but firmly disentangled himself from Melissa's grip. Melissa, he said quietly, is any of this true? Have you been lying to me? She stared at him in disbelief, then quickly rearranged her features into wounded innocence. Of course not. How could you even ask me that? It's our wedding day. But Robert wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking past her, to the side altar where his best man stood, a tablet in his hands. The accounts Jenny found, the best man said grimly, holding up the tablet. They match what the FBI is saying. He turned the screen toward Robert. I'm sorry, man. I didn't want to believe it either. But when you asked me to look into those strange transfers last week, Melissa lunged for the tablet, but an agent smoothly intercepted her. In the struggle, her carefully arranged veil came loose, along with what I now realized was a hair extension, revealing much shorter, darker hair beneath. Pastor Michaels, finally finding his voice, attempted to restore order. Perhaps we should take a brief recess from the ceremony while this matter is sorted out. His suggestion was met with another outburst from Melissa, who suddenly changed tactics. This is all Margaret Wilson's fault, she shouted, pointing directly at me in the back pew. She's jealous because I built a better business. She couldn't compete, so she's trying to ruin me. For the first time since entering the church, I stood up, every eye turned to me, the woman, who had sat quietly in the back, observing until now. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I have the receipts, I said simply, my voice carrying in the now silent church. Every transaction, every client you stole, every fake review you posted, the loan you took out in our partnership's name without my knowledge, the texts between you and the property manager before the fire, all of it. Melissa's face contorted with fury. You bitter old woman, you've nothing. Your salon was dying before I ever came along. I just put it out of its misery. Her carefully cultivated charm had vanished completely, revealing the calculating predator beneath. Several guests gasped at her transformation. Robert took a physical step back from his bride, horror evident on his face. Agent Calloway nodded to her colleagues, who moved toward Melissa. That's enough, she said firmly. Angela Dawson, you're under arrest for wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit arson. You have the right to remain silent. As the agent continued reading Miranda rights, Melissa Angelo's handcuffed right there at the altar, still wearing her wedding gown. The church had descended into chaos, with guests talking over each other, some recording on phones, others hurrying for the exits. I remained, standing in my place, watching as they led her down the aisle, a very different procession than the one she'd made just 30 minutes earlier. As she passed my pew, she stopped and hissed, "This isn't over." Margaret, Agent Calloway tugged her forward, but not before I responded quietly, "Yes, Angela, it is. Our eyes held for one final moment before they escorted her out the side door to a waiting vehicle. In the aftermath, Robert Jenkins approached me, his face a study in conflicted emotions. "Mrs. Wilson, I had no idea. She told me she was helping you transition to retirement, that you were like a mentor to her." He ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, disheveling it. "The salon, the partnership, even thanking you in the ceremony, it was all based on what she told me. I'm so sorry." "You're not the first person she's deceived," I said gently, feeling a strange compassion for this young man whose wedding day had turned into a public spectacle. "And you're fortunate you found out before the marriage was official." He nodded numbly, then was pulled away by his concerned parents, who were already in damage control mode. Speaking urgently with Pastor Michaels about managing the situation, Agent Calloway found me as the church emptied. "That was quite a ceremony," she remarked dryly, though not exactly what we had planned. I raised an eyebrow questioningly, and she continued, "We were going to wait until the reception to approach her, minimize the public scene. But when the pastor mentioned your name and I saw her reaction, I made a judgment call. I apologize if it put you in an uncomfortable position." "Don't apologize," I assured her. It was strangely cathartic to see her facade finally crumble in front of everyone. I glanced around the now empty church, at the flowers and ribbons decorating the altar where justice had ultimately been served. "What happens now?" "Now we build our case," she said, "with what we've already documented and what we'll find when we execute search warrants on her properties and accounts. She's looking at significant federal charges. I'd like you to come to the field office tomorrow to make a formal statement, if you're willing." I agreed immediately, and as we walked out of the church together, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of Melissa's betrayal hadn't disappeared completely, but it had shifted, becoming bearable. The months that followed were busy ones. I gave formal statements to the FBI and local police. The fire marshal officially ruled the salon fire as arson, though they couldn't definitively prove who had set it. The property manager, faced with potential conspiracy charges, quickly offered to reinstate my lease under better terms, but I declined. That chapter of my life had closed, and I wasn't interested in trying to rebuild Crowning Glory from ashes. Angela Dawson, the woman I'd known as Melissa Cooper, was charged with multiple federal crimes. In the face of overwhelming evidence, she eventually accepted a plea deal, 8 years in federal prison, plus restitution to her victims. I was present at her sentencing hearing, watching from the back of the courtroom as she stood before the judge, stripped of her designer clothes and perfect makeup, looking smaller and less formidable in her prison jumpsuit. Our eyes met briefly as they led her away. This time, there was no hatred in her gaze, just a hollow emptiness that almost made me pity her. Almost. The legal proceedings against her revealed the full scope of her crimes. She had run similar schemes in 6 different locations over 8 years, targeting small business owners nearing retirement age, particularly women without close family ties. The total financial damage exceeded $1.2 million across all her victims. The judge ordered restitution, though everyone understood that most of us would never see the full amount we were owed. The Jenkins family, eager to distance themselves from the scandal, proved unexpectedly helpful. Robert Jenkins Sr., perhaps feeling some responsibility for his son's near disaster, offered to invest in my next venture. "The community needs skilled professionals they can trust," he told me. "Someone with your experience and integrity shouldn't be sidelined by one bad actor." His offer came with no strings attached, just a genuine desire to make amends for what his family had inadvertently enabled. After careful consideration, I decided not to reopen Crowning Glory. 37 years was enough. Instead, I used the insurance money, my settlement from the civil suit against Angela and the Jenkins investment, to open something new. Second Act Studio, a combined salon and training center where I could teach the next generation of stylists not just technical skills, but business ethics and client care. I hired back my loyal former employees as instructors, and we opened our doors exactly 1 year after the fateful wedding. The scandal had made me something of a local celebrity. My first class of students filled immediately, many of them drawn by my story of resilience. "We want to learn from someone who can't be broken," one young woman told me during her interview. I didn't have the heart to tell her that I had been broken, but I'd pieced myself back together into something stronger, wiser. Jennifer visits regularly now, helping modernize our business systems and teaching a module on cybersecurity for small business owners. The best defense is knowledge, she tells my students. Know who you're dealing with, document everything, and trust your instincts when something feels wrong. She's become the daughter I never had, bridging the gap that had grown between us after Frank's death. Some good things, it seems, can rise from the ashes of disaster. As for Radiance Hair Studio, it closed within weeks of Angela's arrest. Most of her former clients returned to me, apologetic and slightly embarrassed. We should have known better, they'd say. You were always there for us. I welcomed them back without recrimination. Business, after all, is about relationships, not services rendered, but trust maintained over years. That was something Angela never understood, for all her calculation and charm. Now, 2 years later, I stand in front of my mirror each morning and see a different woman than the one who sat broken at her kitchen table that dark night. My hair has gone completely silvery, stopped coloring it during the trial, and I wear it in a stylish bob that my younger students assure me is totally fierce. There are more lines around my eyes, certainly. But they're mostly from laughing these days. I've started dating again, cautiously, a kind widower named Thomas who teaches history at the community college and who knows my whole story but still looks at me like I'm something precious. I still have those pearl-handled scissors. I don't use them for cutting anymore. They sit in a shadow box on the wall of my office at second act, along with a newspaper article about Angela's sentencing and a photo of the original crowning glory on opening day. They remind me daily that even when everything is taken from you, your skill, your knowledge, and your integrity remain. Those are the things no one can steal. If you're listening to this and something in my story resonates with you, pause for a moment. Think about the relationships in your life, business and personal. Are there red flags you've been ignoring? Trust that uneasy feeling in your gut when something seems too good to be true. Document everything, especially when money is involved. And remember, it's never too late for a second act. I'm Margaret Wilson, recording this from my office at Second Act Studio in Millfield, where I'm about to teach a masterclass on business ethics to 20 aspiring salon owners. If my story has helped you recognize something in your own life, please leave a comment below. And if you know someone who's struggling with betrayal or starting over after loss, share this with them. Sometimes the most powerful words we can hear are simply, "You're not alone." And this isn't the end of your story. Oh, and that scent of lavender and sandalwood that I mentioned at the beginning. That was Frank's favorite combination when I'd cut his hair. Now it's the signature scent of Second Act Studio. Some legacies are worth keeping and some are worth transforming into something new. The pearl-handled scissors taught me that.